Hey, Broderick Wallace here, and yeah, session, companions of Set, and just trying to stay alive. Yeah, and look, I never start a video expecting that anyone's really paid much attention to me or anything like that, so don't get me wrong, I'm not foolish. But I have left a record that is kind of cold and hot. It's like there's something really wholesome going on, whilst at the same time there's something pretty dark going on. Like, I know that. That's what I'm like. So I feel that I've kind of found that balance recently. Having those, well, I mean, they've always been in play, but it's a matter of expression, isn't it? And it's like, what do you mean by darkness? Do you mean evil? No. I guess I mean reality in a way. Because it's arse, isn't it? You see, you know this saying, sing when you're winning. Like, everything's going great. Or you've landed in a good place in order to set things up and keep things moving, and everything's exponential. Like, if life's good, you know, you feel good, you're working hard, things are happening, things are working out for you, other people are responding in kind, and you're building each other up, etc. And the opposite happens. Like, if you feel terrible, you tend to, act in a way which is more negative, and this might, scare people off, and opportunities are, they might pass you by, etc. You know what I mean? Like, it's obvious, isn't it? So, but what if taking in the whole of reality, upon the magical path, of course, we're talking from the point of view of the magical path. If you are to have an appreciation for the complete span, surely this ties in with, with balance. Just eating a sugar cube with milk. I need to quell that craving. That's better. It's just a little method that I'm trying out. Anyway, so the dark and the light. Feeling great, harmony. Feeling not so great, discord. But is it really that simple? It's not, is it? Because there's all the other colours of the rainbow, and everything's complicated. If you imagine that everything has, in any moment, a certain amount of properties and an infinite potential of variation of those properties, and we're all interacting with each other. Like, it's tricky, isn't it? It's raining hard because the tension has built up over a few days. It's been extremely hot here in the UK, that almost like, I don't know, like I've been walking around in the daytime like, God, it's like being in Turkey or something. And then when you feel that intense damp, it's like, it's how I would imagine a rainforest or something. So that tension is finally releasing, and you see, when the tension releases, you feel a little bit better, a little bit more positive. But do you forget where you came from? Like, if life is going well, You know, are you that selfish that you don't put yourself in other people's shoes? I mean, everyone's got a memory, right? We can remember what it was like when we're struggling. So me, I have this sort of natural inability to kind of, there's a resistance to my configuration, you know, becoming completely joyous or happy. It feels like it feels crass in a way, you know. It feels disrespectful in the face of reality itself. Like, are you taking it seriously? Do you realise where you are? When you've lived on a knife edge, and you could say partially by choice, but not entirely. If you have a run of bad luck and you're, I mean, already living, you know, quite an isolated existence, and that, you know, the knob goes up to 11. With the building of that storm, I'm just going to say, look, I sat here rather, but it was a different place, so it's kind of there. It's here and there. It's neither here or there, is it? The moment has passed, but has it? Sitting there thinking, is this the end? Is this the end for me? Because I can't foresee a way of solving this problem, and this problem is survival. But something turned up. It's funny how things work out, isn't it? But you see, my mind is unable to recover from the intensity of that realization, and all of the options, well, pretty much 2 options that flashed up in my head. You know, do I carry on or do I not? And then I'm trapped because I have to carry on because I'm a tenacious bastard, and I've got people out there I care about. But what if life configures itself in such a way that you can't carry on, that you can't survive, that there's something perhaps even more insidious than that, and that is long-term stress that, you know, causes illness. This happens to people. Like, if you're always on the edge, if you're always stressed, you know, your natural health, that buoyancy, that, you know, liveliness gradually starts to just get worn down, doesn't it? That potential to even default in an even half happy place gets worn away. You know, you quite often see people, you know, smokers like this, right? They're just sort of clinging onto that cigarette, and, you know, they're very cynical. It seems to go hand in hand. And I've struggled with nicotine addiction over the years, so I know all about it. Just hanging on to that metaphorical teat, a bit like that line in Friends. What is it? I suckle from the dark mother's smoky teat, or whatever. It is a bit like that. So what saves the day, in a way, if it can be saved? Or what allows one to settle, to balance out to that place that may not necessarily be ecstatic, but you're able to cope again? Well, is it just, you know, the biological need to want to live, to want to carry on? Is it, you know, is it your loved ones? Well, for me, it certainly is, you know. Is it the thought of failing? Is it a sense of competition with other people, or a kind of like, I tell you what, in me there's this like, I have a mission. here to do something important. It might not look like it. You know, do you not understand? No, you probably don't. It might not look like it because you're unable to tune in, right? If you're able to tune in, you know, like I can't explain it to you. I'm talking from, you know, being in front of a, you know, an NPC, a normal person, whatever, right? Even though half of them are lovely, the other half are not. Couldn't explain it, could you? Like, what are you doing? What is it that you're up to? Well, I'm attempting to pierce the veil of reality and to win something back to foster contact and experience of disembodied intelligences, indeed the forces of nature themselves, in order to develop a relationship and uncover lost secrets. And why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Because it's so interesting. It's certainly just very interesting. Because I fucking have to. Because it's what life's all about. Even if I have to be poor forever. As long as I've got enough to get by, you know, just the basics, that's fine. I'll stick to it. I'll stick to it till the bitter end. Why? Because someone else will understand. If not now, then in the future, someone else will understand because they'll be on that mission. They'll realise this life is ephemeral. We're not here for very long. Something must be obtained before we depart to, the next stage. So I put this post up on Facebook the other day, and it's funny, if you say anything that's, if you say that, you know, reality is awful and that we're trapped here, and, you know, you agree with the, you know, the Gnostic sentiment that something's wrong with reality, and except if you say this, people, oh, cheer up, and oh, don't worry. It's nice, don't get me wrong. No, don't worry, and, you know, don't make a pact with, you know, demons or whatever, and that's sweet. You know, I don't mind that. It's sweet. It's nice. It's nice. Even people just to. I always appreciate interaction. You know, it's those that just watch everything that I don't have respect for. You know, people just watch everything, don't they? They never weigh in, do they? It's too risky. I prefer to just judge from a safe distance. So, you know, even if someone says something I don't agree with, or, you know, whatever, might have a little. Probably won't actually, because I couldn't be bothered to argue or anything, but might have a disagreement, but there's some respect there, isn't there? It's like, thanks for joining in, or thanks for being asked. But that can go too far, can't it? You know, if you spend all day, you know, all day just, and that's what it's for, isn't it? In a way, that's where it gets you, because it's a distraction against. It's when I was out window cleaning a couple of months ago, someone left it wasn't a garage, it was more like a shed, a big shed at the end of their garden. They left the door open, and I could see what was inside. It caught my eye because it was loads of mannequins with wigs in sexy lingerie and stuff like that, and like boxes of clothing, and it's like, oh, okay, dude, that's what you get up to, is it? Well, you know, that's what you're into. If it's not hurting anyone, if it's relieving stress, if it's, you know, but all that effort could be directed towards an actual relationship, couldn't it? So it's the same thing with Facebook. It's like all that effort could be directed towards actually creating something or changing something in the world. Of course, it's a distraction. And there are many times when life is tough, you feel like, oh, I'm just going to say something radical on there. Just don't always just wait for the wave to crash, let it go out, let it come back. Don't do that. Just don't do that. It's always a bad idea. I'm telling you. And there's been many times I know this, and I just wanted to, no, don't. Because this is part of the training, getting yourself together. You're not going to be perfect. I'm not perfect. No one is. But we strive towards that. Strive to be in control. Don't let the elements control us. We must be the master of the elements, right? But you see, these forces, these skills, everything exists within a world which is unfair. So anything can happen, and you can just get wiped out. In the same way that when I'm cleaning windows, I see a spider in the corner. He's built this lovely web. He's got everything going on. He's put a lot of work in, and I just come along and start again, mate. Well, I've experienced that recently. Everything's ticking along just fine. Life comes along. Right. All my efforts down the drain. So what do? Just like that spider, you just start building a new web. But is the spider stressed? I'm not sure. I think it just does it, It's a bit different when you're human, isn't it? Got to start again, just picking up the pieces. But there is a dignity in that, is there not? Especially seeing as though I've set up this session circle Bluebell Hill. So if I'm telling you, I know what it's like. I'm coming from a real place where, no medals or anything. I'm not patting myself on the back. It's just a fact. But you see, if you've been wiped out enough times, if you've had to pick up the pieces enough times, if your psychology is partly damaged, if you can't sort of reset to a default enthusiastic wholesomeness, because, well, not only the damage, but say you're just not configured that way, being someone who loves metal and, gothic horror literature and, the occult and all these, I do gravitate towards that darkness. I do find it beautiful. There is something. I don't think, you see, you can only get this if you're directed the same way, if you have that saturnine quality to your character, where time and, ancient history and, discipline appeals as well. Like, there's something appealing about that sternness of it, so that bodes well when it comes to keeping up the meditation discipline, doesn't it? That saturnine quality definitely does. Of course, Mars is, discipline related as well, but I think there's something saturnine as well about that. Something conservative there, isn't there? Do it properly, The old ways are the best, tradition and all that. So, I was talking about with negativity. I just mentioned, the word conservative. So if we take it to the other direction, we could come up against victim culture, couldn't we? Like I've said it many times, I think Jordan Peterson has got a lot to say, and it's, I really love the guy, but there are things where, I don't agree with, of course. It's always like that, isn't it? And, all my friends and all the people I respect, there's always something that I don't agree with, or, and everyone that knows me, there's something about me that they don't agree with. Like, we're never going to have this complete harmony, are we? And I did hear someone say or write down or whatever it was, it's okay to have a plurality of views. I thought, it's quite kind of a cool thing to say, isn't it? It's okay to have a a plurality of viewpoints. Yeah, that's nice. I thought I'll try and be more like that myself as as time goes on. Like, just when you come up against something like someone's cool, but how can you think that? It's like, it's okay to have a plurality of viewpoints. Peter Piper picked a pickled pepper from a pepper tree. Tea. Right. So, it's raining. It's nice. Tension is being released. Imagine if you couldn't express many human needs. Many human needs weren't catered for. Don't you think that certain tension would build up? Even if you are in tune with that saturnine vibe in you, you're someone who can do without a lot. Like, if you had to do without a hell of a lot for a long time. Oh, there's the lightning. Yes. I've been waiting for this. See, the question is, like, I remember me and my friend years ago, we said, well, what do we have to do? Like, chain ourselves to to an ancient dolmen out in a field and just let it rain on us, and are we supposed to just, suffer? Obviously talking about, spiritual pursuits and that. And it's a funny thing to weigh up in your mind when you think, well, we could all be broken, couldn't we? Isn't it best to just look at the way things are and try to improve? But should we hold the whole of that potential in our minds all the time? Because that is also natural, isn't it? It's what keeps you sensible in a way, isn't it? Let it rain, let it rain. So, is there something wrong with reality? Or is it just, from our viewpoint? I know there's this idea that, like, from the point of view of the ego, from the human experience, it seems as if shit stinks, right? It seems as if, when you see a bullfrog swallow a mouse, it just seems bad. When I was going to say turn on the TV, but that hasn't happened for years. When you accidentally, I was going to say whatever, when you come across some bad news on the net or whatever, some disaster, some village has been, destroyed by bad weather or an earthquake or whatever. Does it just look bad from our perspective? Yeah. Are we supposed to take like a wider view? I don't think so. Because this is where we are. It is where we're at. The idea of destroying your ego and becoming at one with the universe, and supposedly it makes you more compassionate, it makes you a better person, right? So then, surely the whole thing looks even worse. It just is bad. It just is fucked up. Sorry. All of the positive programming, it does help. It does. And I do a lot of it, believe me. But I know where I come back to. I know the point of reset. I understand that I can only really find peace in meditation. I know that. When the mind is fixed, and that peace does come back with me. So it does heighten my default level, if you like. It does work. So that is what you should do. You should take those teachings on as a a viable solution and try and cultivate that discipline, etc. But you shouldn't ignore the facts, should you? You shouldn't ignore the facts. Are we trapped? Are we imprisoned? I mean, yeah, we are, aren't we? Within human bodies that have a potential to suffer in quite extreme ways, right? You think about all of the suffering. If you really stop for a second and consider reincarnation, you should be worried. Just think about what people have been through on this earth and what they may go through in the future. If we are to reincarnate, are we not trapped? Are we supposed to debase ourselves before the Creator? Is suffering a gift? No, fuck that, it's not. It's awful. It's unjust. Is this the only way we can grow? I'm sure if we had some kind of divine intelligence that, knows everything and has infinite resources, it could design almost like a kind of computer game, because this is, in a way, when you get down to the quantum level or whatever, there is something strangely digital about reality, isn't it? Although it's not. It's not that at all. But you can see some kind of parallel there. So, seeing as though there isn't a perfect fail-safe introduced into the system whereby if you're good, you'll be okay, if you're bad, you get punished, because you don't work that way, it suggests that isn't entirely the point, is it? It's like something has emanated and some portion of consciousness has been dispersed and fragmented, and it's formed its own little I like that term, whirlpools, that dude uses. I can't remember his name right now. These sentient whirlpools of disassociated consciousness. You know the guy, I can't think of his name right now, but great guy. Did you choose this life? This idea that I chose this mission, I chose to reincarnate. You imagine all of these kind of higher entities, these true selves, almost like looking down upon the earth, and it's like, yes, I need to be that boring bus driver for 74 years. Yeah, the ones with the crap tattoos who smokes rollies constantly and got divorced in his late 50s and smoked himself to death. That guy, that's the lesson I need to learn. None of it makes sense really, does it? Everything's too idealistic. So obviously it is a natural system. There is some kind of emanation, because I'm talking as a magician here. If you've had experience of these levels of consciousness, if you've met these beings, you've had these experiences, you've received prophetic dreams, all this kind of stuff, you can see that there are levels of consciousness going on. There is this idea of the emanation makes sense. It makes sense enough that you can we'll go with that. It's a natural system that is unfair. So in the same way, I guess you could bring in that every man and every woman is a star thing. Everyone's different. Everyone has a different set of capacities and potentials. There's not one way. Weird things happen, strange miracles happen from time to time, and Most of it's pretty mundane. So I've talked before about how dreams help in this process. I can only talk from where I'm at, right? Talked about how dreams help in this process, the acceptance of this unfair natural system where you don't have to debase yourself before, divinity in this. I'm so grateful for. No, just be where you are and say, right, what do we need to, let's look at it kind of in a technical sense where it's like, say for instance, I've chosen this and these things work. This is, you're looking at tradition and, or even subverting tradition, whatever it is. Culture is not your friend if you can just see through culture whilst at the same time existing within it. If you can just do all this and understand that you have to work, that you have to apply discipline, and these occult arts are real, but most of it will be tainted with silliness, so you've got to somehow find the truth, because everything's too complicated and it's a complete mess, and so you've got to have your wits about you. Not everyone's got what it takes. Am I lucky? Yeah, I guess should I be grateful? Well, what have I missed? I don't know what I've missed. Pick something and stick to it. I made that decision about 3 years ago, to just stick at it. Like, when I used to play guitar, I knew that I had to master rhythm guitar. If I got caught up in all the guitar solos and you're chopping and changing, no. Build it up methodically, stick at it, practice every night. It's the same thing. Just need to close that window. So all you need is a good example, or more than one. Say, right, I'm going to stick to this. And then the longer that you stick to it, you start meeting other people, some of them that have made that decision years before you, and you can see that it works. Support each other. Where does religion come in? See, the funny thing is, and this is what I believe, and I believe that there are others that see this the same way. And that is, if you approach these things just purely methodically with that scientific state of mind, it won't work as well. Because you have to be artistic, you have to be creative. There is a certain religious devotion, a faith, a kind of coupling yourself with your dreams in a way, with tradition, with forces that are more powerful than you are, right? So a little bit of that respectfulness coming in, like people use these terms like, oh, I'm working with so-and-so, and if you arrive at this point where you realise that you are absolutely in resonance with a particular religion, tradition, God, or whatever, latch onto it, use it. Because even though this world is a joke, and yeah, nature is beautiful. It's beautiful to look at. It's beautiful to look at, isn't it? It's beautiful to experience when you're in a good mood, when things are going well, when you've got enough to eat or You haven't got to, worry about the bills all the time. When you have good friends, if you're being afflicted, you might not have it in you to appreciate that so much. Or even though it is healing, even though it is beneficial, it is beautiful to look at. But at its heart is violence. Let's face it. All of those documentaries that we watched for years when we were kids, they cut out the bits where where the lions ate a deer, starting at its arsehole while it was still alive or whatever, With the internet, another good thing is you can, even though it's awful, you can watch some of this stuff. Probably have to turn it off after a few seconds, but it's there, It's a bit like the Iraq War years back. They didn't show you the reality on the TV, did they? I don't know anything about it. Obviously, I wasn't there, but I can imagine from some of the stories that I've heard that. So you have to put yourself, even though you can't really, you have to put yourself in the position of people like that. When you're playing a computer game and you're a warrior and you've got a sword or whatever, when you're playing a role-playing game, when you're reading a book, whatever. When we were children, we watched Star Wars and we, wanted to be a ninja or whatever. Didn't really, because of the television, because of the censorship, because of the natural tendency to want to play out things when you're younger, we didn't really consider the violence because we couldn't. It was too much. It was outside of our ken. This violence is at the heart of nature. It is at the heart also of human history. And it stinks. It's awful. And even more awful than that is that we all have the potential, and perhaps even more awful than that is that there are certain things that situations where we could imagine that would be justified, and it would. Personally, I have a grudge against the government in the UK. They've taken a lot from me, taken the most precious things from me, and I'm telling you right now that I could justify things that would shock you, but I don't focus on that every day because it's not healthy for the mind. But you see, you imagine you're in a village, I don't know, 2,000 years ago or something, and just the neighbouring tribe decides they're going to come over and fucking murder all the men, take all the women and have their way with them. This is what happened. Hundreds, thousands of times across history. Just like when you watch those documentaries of, I don't know, is it chimpanzees or something? They have their little wars, don't they? Or, sometimes if they fancy a bit of meat, they'll just eat some little spider monkey alive or whatever, Have you seen that footage on the internet as it's screaming? Yeah. This is the problem that we have to deal with. It's best not to get caught up in victim culture. And if you are feeling the darkness of that reality, in extreme ways to the point where it disrupts your equilibrium, if there is a way of dealing with that, you should. Through whatever it takes. Because it's not fair and you shouldn't have to put up with it. You shouldn't have to deal with it. None of us should. So how can we not be trapped here if many of us are dealing with things that we shouldn't have to deal with? You know, sing when you're winning, when everything's great. Yeah, great. But things can turn real dark real quick. Imagine you didn't have the energy that you have. Imagine you couldn't get around like you usually do. Imagine that the bailiffs are knocking on the door. Imagine that you can't think straight, you can't concentrate. Imagine worse things, if you like. Just let your imagination, let it go wild. How bad could it get? Well, somewhere in the world, someone's going through that. Someone has gone through it, and someone will go through it. What gives authority its authority? Everything is predicated on violence. So we bring our children up, happy, clappy, whatever, and don't even get me started on wokeness, because there's things I can't even say in this video because it will get removed and my channel will get removed. This is how deep it gets. There's things I can't even talk about, and they're not that bad actually. It's just that there are insane people who, or there is an insane system that lacks, nuance, whereby certain categories of opinion just get lumped together and deleted. It's okay to be who you are to a degree. It's okay to have a pride in who you are, where you come from. It's okay to, to want to preserve that. You don't have to go along with the zeitgeist. But trouble is, the zeitgeist is going along without you. So you have to find a middle ground. You have to find a way of living and letting live, instead of being that, a gang of chimpanzees just ready to rip the rivals to pieces or whatever. But what if they're coming for you? Or what if, not physically but psychologically more so, you're attacked for years on end? Do you have a right to vengeance? In some cases, I'm afraid the answer is yes. So, if we take the Franz Bardon training as an extreme, which is kind of very heavily Christian and very positive in its nature, it usually is the answer. It usually is. But it's not detailed enough to cover every eventuality. So don't fall into cognitive dissonance, whereby you think, I should be thinking this, but reality's going to have to make your own way. You're going to have to find a middle. There's going to be choices that you have to make, right? And unfortunately, for the most part, we're on our own with those choices. Are you going to be eternally damned if you either stand up for yourself or you destroy evil? I don't think so. Rather not be in that position, but, And what about those people that, we could even get into the whole free will thing and do you have a choice about, your mind, where you're dumped, just everything, there's a lot of people out there, we know this, we see them every day as we're walking around, they're controlled by their elements. They're controlled by their situation, by the culture. Everything is a kind of consensus thing going on. And at their heart, perhaps when they were children, most of them were good. Although you do get psychopaths, right? You do get people who are more reptile than mammal, yeah? How do you navigate all that into a complete worldview? Well, the answer is you don't, unless you want to fall into cognitive dissonance or fall into cult-like behaviour and activity. It's too fucking complicated for any book, any philosophy, any system. So you need to keep listening to other people, keep punishing yourself in a way, be very honest with yourself. That's another saturnine quality, I guess. Just like it says in the book, you know. That's one thing that it did. That it does leave it to your discretion, doesn't it? So in a way, I guess you're trying to find a way to be good without being a nutty, without being brainwashed, basically. Because that's the natural instinct, isn't it? It's what people gravitate towards. What's good, what's comfy, what's cozy, what's warm, what's... Even if they have to kick other people out of the way. Almost every, as far as I can see it, almost every problem we face is caused by selfishness. And selfishness, along with violence, is a characteristic of nature. There is no grand answer to all this. Like, we're just alone with the facts. If it gets too much, we can delude ourselves, but it just is what it is, right? But these techniques work. Magic works. The gods are out there, up there. If you call out to the stars, you may get an answer. If you do funny things in the night, it may have an effect. And the way that you resonate, the way that you move forward, if you're lucky enough for that to be somewhat harmonious, somewhat wholesome, and it keeps resonating that way, great. If you have to try a little bit harder, it probably makes you, it probably gives you something. It probably engenders something within you that's difficult to describe. But what if it goes too far? What if you're too afflicted? Too afflicted? What if you become evil in the eyes of many? It's possible, isn't it? I mean, this is perfectly depicted in, believe it or not, Star Wars. Even though those George Lucas prequels are kind of crap, there is something cool about them. Like, it does capture that, you know, bright, talented, young thing, got everything going for him, and because he just keeps getting kicked in the nuts by life, has his mother taken away from him, people are trying to manipulate him, even the Jedi, if you like, just, you know, we got it all worked out for you, son, you know, very independent and all that, and in the end has to travel through that darkness in order to eventually redeem himself. But you can do all that in a day. You can do all that in a day within your mind. You can do that. We go through those kind of things all the time, don't we? But you see, the real evil, it isn't us. The real evil is nature. It's that which traps us here. It's that which binds us here. And that doesn't mean, you know, that, this is my opinion, of course. It doesn't mean that you need to despise nature, or when I say nature, I mean being itself. And as Jordan Peterson says, if you turn against being itself, it's a real slippery slope. But can you blame some people? Can you really blame them? I guess if you mix that with selfishness, you get the worst result. Can you blame them that they weren't strong enough? Should we have to put up with it? No. It's like you need rules and regulations. People have to be managed. But then that turns into a farm. There is no answer to managing people. Every government becomes a tyranny. And if you destroy that tyranny, another one will take its place. Tyranny, even the good-hearted, you know, the desire for fairness and all that, becomes a new kind of tyranny, as we've seen in certain extreme cases, like recently especially. So, if you want to leave tyranny behind, you enter the desert. It's the Exodus. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. So there, I would say, there is an advantage in aligning yourself with the archetypal representation of that state. And it's possible to be compassionate in that direction. So I was coming somewhere on nature. Just lost my thread there. My mind entered the desert. Put it this way. It would be a really noble thing, wouldn't it, to choose to be better than the universe, to be better than God, in a way. But imagine how some people would take that. Imagine the strength that takes to be better than reality. And in a way, that is what we are being asked to do if we take life seriously. And I don't think that you can argue against the fact that that is extremely unfair. But some of us, we try our best and we place our faith in either God or the gods or philosophy or sometimes cognitive dissonance, whatever. We do our best. Just like that vision I had of the birds. Be one of the birds that makes it. Take care. And if anyone wants to begin a training course in hermetics with someone who realistically understands these dilemmas, then I'm here for you. The link's below. And I'll tell you something I will say. I want to end with something positive. It's a bit like a cartoon, isn't it? Like He-Man at the end. Like, come on, like. And this is what we've learned, kids. I'll tell you something I've learned. the value of friendship is so important. Like, to have good friends. You know, whatever I've had to face over the years, like, I've faced, to this point, I've never had many friends for a long time. Like, so I found it difficult to. Are you surprised? Just listen to my channel. Are you surprised I found it hard to make friends? Yeah, for a long time I did, because it's like, you know, find the others. Where are your people? You know, they're rare. You know, because we're difficult. Not because we're special, because we're difficult. Yeah. But even with this mind control, brainwashing, intelligence destroying, government spying mechanism, even though all of that shit going on, it's made it possible to make some awesome friends that really take the edge off of that reality. So, you know, all it takes is a kind gesture, you know, being reliable, you know, being being true to your word. There's so many things that can be healed by a simple, good gesture. And I will say I've had people around me recently that have really, you know, really taught me that. And whenever I felt my mind darkening in that direction of this harshness, this knowingness of this brutal universe, this brutal reality, whenever I felt that twisting in that direction, you know, when the eyes just begin to turn yellow. Yeah. I've been able to latch on to the faith that other people have expressed in me, and it's made all the difference. So I think that's an important point to end on. It may feel like we're alone in the dark, but we're not. There's lots of us alone in the dark. So remember, it's okay to have a plurality of views. I wish you good night, and